Hey everyone, welcome to the Chilling Hour, where the stories never let you sleep. My name is Aaron Holloway. I was 34 years old when this happened, and I'm 40 now. I've told this story only a few times, usually late at night when people think I'm joking or drunk. I'm not. I don't fish anymore. I don't go near lakes after sunset. And I still wake up some nights with the smell of river mud in my nose and the sound of something breathing just beneath the water. I grew up in northern Wisconsin, the kind of place where fishing isn't a hobby, it's a birthright. My father taught me how to bait a hook before I could ride a bike. By my 20s, fishing alone had become my way of clearing my head. No music, no phone, just the water, the insects, and the slow pull of time. In October of 2020, I decided to take a solo trip to a small, unnamed lake about 2 hours north of my town. Locals called it Black Elk Lake, though it wasn't on most maps. It sat deep in state forest land, surrounded by pine and birch, with no cabins nearby and no cell service. People said the fishing was incredible in the fall. They also said the lake was wrong at night, but people say that about a lot of places. I arrived just before dusk. The air was cold enough to sting my lungs, and the sky was turning that bruised purple color that comes before real darkness. I set up my small aluminum boat, packed my rods, and pushed off from the muddy shore. The lake was perfectly still, like a sheet of black glass. As I paddled out toward the center, I noticed how quiet it was. No frogs, no birds, not even wind in the trees. I remember thinking it felt like the world was holding its breath. I anchored near a drop-off and cast my line. The water swallowed the lure without a sound. I sat there, wrapped in my jacket, listening to my own breathing. That's when I felt it, a faint vibration through the hull of the boat, like something bumping it from underneath. I leaned over the side and shined my flashlight into the water. The beam barely penetrated the darkness. I saw nothing, but the feeling didn't go away. The lake felt crowded, like something unseen was moving just out of sight. About 15 minutes later, I got my first bite. The line went taut, jerking hard enough to almost pull the rod from my hands. I laughed, adrenaline kicking in, and started reeling. Whatever was on the other end was heavy. Too heavy. It didn't fight like a fish. It pulled steadily, with intention. As I reeled it closer, the water beneath the boat began to ripple. Then, just below the surface, I saw a pale shape twist and roll. Not silver like a fish. Pale, almost gray, like skin that hadn't seen sunlight in a long time. The line went slack. I stared at the water, heart pounding, waiting for the fish to surface or pull again. Instead, something else happened. A sound came from the far end of the lake. A splash. Then another, slow, deliberate, like something very large was wading through shallow water. I told myself it was a deer or a moose. That area had both. Still, the sound was wrong, too rhythmic, too close together. I decided to move. I pulled up the anchor and started paddling back toward shore. That's when I heard it for the first time. Someone called my name, Aaron. It came from behind me, low and wet, like a voice carried through water. I froze. My name wasn't common, and I hadn't told anyone where I was going. I turned slowly, flashlight shaking in my hand, and scanned the darkness. There was no one there. I laughed nervously and shook my head, muttering about exhaustion. Then I heard it again, closer this time. Aaron, help me. The voice sounded like a man in his 20s, maybe 30s. American accent. Familiar somehow. It came from the middle of the lake. Hello? I called back, instantly regretting it. My voice sounded thin and small. The water began to move. Ripples spread outward, as if something was rising from below. I shined my light toward the disturbance, and for a split second, I saw a face just beneath the surface. It wasn't distorted by water. It was clear. A man's face. Pale, bloated, eyes open and staring straight at me. His mouth opened, and bubbles poured out as he smiled. I screamed and paddled hard, my muscles burning as panic took over. The boat rocked violently. Something slammed into the side, nearly tipping me over. I felt fingers brush my ankle, cold and slick, before disappearing back into the water. I reached the shore and jumped out, dragging the boat behind me. I didn't care about my gear. I just ran, stumbling through brush and roots, my flashlight bouncing wildly. That's when I noticed something I hadn't seen before. Along the shoreline, half buried in mud and leaves, were old fishing poles, rusted tackle boxes, torn life jackets, dozens of them, all abandoned, all pointing toward the lake like grave markers. I stopped running. Behind me, the water began to slosh. Slow footsteps emerged from the lake, heavy and wet. I turned around. A man was standing at the edge of the water, or what had once been a man. His clothes were old-fashioned, like something from the 1970s. His skin hung loose on his frame, gray and cracked. Lake weeds draped over his shoulders and chest. Water poured from his mouth as he spoke. "You took my spot," he said. More shapes began to rise behind him, faces breaking the surface, hands gripping the mud. Men, all men, different ages, different decades, all wearing fishing gear. I realized then what Black Elk Lake was, a place that took men who came alone, a place that kept them. I backed away slowly, my legs shaking. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I didn't know." The first man tilted his head, listening. None of us did. They moved toward me as one. I turned and ran again, faster than I ever have in my life. Branches tore at my face. I could hear splashing behind me, followed by dragging footsteps on land. They were learning how to walk again. I don't remember how long I ran. Minutes, hours. I collapsed near my truck just as dawn broke, the forest finally alive with birdsong. When I looked back, the trees were still. The lake was silent. I drove straight to the nearest ranger station. They listened politely as I told my story, exchanging looks when I mentioned the lake. One of them, an older man with tired eyes, finally nodded. "We've lost people out there," he said. "Mostly fishermen, always alone." They searched the area later that week. They found my boat floating near the center of the lake. They didn't find my gear. They didn't find any bodies. But the ranger did tell me one thing before I left. "That lake used to be a logging camp reservoir," he said. "Collapsed in the 70s. Men drowned. Company covered it up. Sometimes, late at night, when I'm trying to sleep, I hear water moving where it shouldn't. I hear my name, spoken in that wet, patient voice. I know they're still there, waiting for someone else to fish alone." Story the end.
Story number 2.
My name is Aaron Cole. I'm 34 years old. What you're about to hear is the last fishing trip I ever took, and the reason I can't stand the smell of lake water anymore. I grew up in northern Minnesota, the kind of place where fishing isn't a hobby, it's a birthright. My dad taught me how to bait a hook before I learned long division. Every summer, the lakes swallowed our weekends. We believed water was honest. If you respected it, it respected you back. That belief died with my friend Luke. This happened in late October, the kind of cold that creeps in early and never really leaves. The tourist cabins were closed, the docks half pulled in, and the lake, Clearwater Lake, looked like a sheet of dark glass under a sky that never fully brightened. Locals said that's when the fish bite best. They also said Clearwater had a bad history, but every lake around here does if you listen long enough. Luke Harris was 36. He'd just gone through a divorce and wanted quiet more than anything. He called me on a Thursday night. "Last trip of the season," he said. "Just us. No phones. No wives. No noise." I should have said no. I remember staring at my tackle box while he talked, my chest tight for no reason I could explain. Instead, I said, "Yeah, one last cast." We launched the boat before sunrise. The motor coughed louder than it should have, echoing off the tree line. Fog clung to the surface of the lake, thick and low, like the water was breathing. I noticed something strange right away. No birds. No loons calling. Not even insects skimming the surface. Luke noticed it too. "Ever seen it this dead?" he asked. I shrugged. "Cold snap, probably." That was my first lie of the weekend. We headed toward the north end of the lake, near a stretch locals avoided. The maps called it Fisherman's Reach, but everyone I knew just called it the Deep. Supposedly the lake dropped off fast there, plunging into black water no sonar could fully read. In the 1950s, a group of commercial fishermen drowned when their nets snagged on something down there. The bodies surfaced days later. The nets never did. Luke laughed when I mentioned it. "Ghost stories," he said. "Fish don't care about history." But when we passed the old buoy marking the drop-off, our depth finder flickered. Numbers spiked and vanished, like something was interfering. I leaned over the side and dipped my hand into the water. It was warmer than it should have been. That's when I heard it. A splash. Not the sharp crack of a jumping fish. This was slow, heavy, intentional. Luke turned, scanning the fog. "You hear that?" Another splash followed, closer this time. "Probably a beaver," I said, though my stomach twisted. We started fishing anyway. First cast, nothing. Second, nothing. The lake felt wrong, like it was waiting. Every ripple seemed delayed. Every sound swallowed too fast. Then Luke's line went tight. "Got one," he grinned, bracing himself. The rod bent hard, too hard. "This is a big one," he said, laughing at first, then straining. "Damn, Aaron, feel this." I reached for the net, easy. "Don't force it." The water beneath the boat began to churn. Luke's smile faded. "It's pulling down." The line screamed as something dragged it deeper. The rod bowed nearly double. "Cut it," I said. "That's not a fish." Before Luke could answer, the boat rocked violently. I fell against the bench as the water erupted beside us. Something surfaced, just for a second. I saw skin, not scales, skin. Pale, gray, stretched tight like it didn't belong in water. Luke screamed. The line snapped, sending him stumbling backward. The surface went calm again, as if nothing had happened. We didn't speak for a full minute. "Tell me you saw that," Luke whispered. I nodded. My hands were shaking. "We're leaving." As I turned the key, the engine sputtered, then died. The fog thickened, closing in until the shoreline vanished completely. The lake was silent again, but now it felt crowded, like we weren't alone anymore. That's when the voices started. At first, it sounded like water sloshing against the hull. Then words formed, muffled, distant, as if spoken through a mouthful of lake water. "Help us." Luke grabbed my arm. "That's not funny, Aaron. I'm not doing anything." The voices came from below. I leaned over the side, heart hammering. The water beneath us was darker now, almost oily. Shapes moved beneath the surface, long and slow. Hands broke the water. Dozens of them. They were human hands, bloated, gray, fingers stretched wide. They slapped against the boat, leaving wet prints that steamed faintly in the cold air. Luke backed away, tripped, and fell against the motor. "They're dead," he sobbed. "They're dead fishermen." One of the hands wrapped around the edge of the boat. Then another. The boat tilted. Something pulled from below. Luke screamed my name as the boat lurched. I grabbed his jacket, but the force was unreal. The water surged over the side, soaking us instantly. A head surfaced. I will never forget that face. It looked like a man who had been drowning for decades. Eyes milky and wide. Mouth stretched open. Jaw cracked like it had tried to scream underwater for too long. It spoke. "Take his place." The hands yanked Luke over the side. I held on until my fingers burned. Luke's eyes locked onto mine, pure terror etched into every line of his face. "Aaron, don't let go." The water surged again. My grip slipped. Luke vanished beneath the surface without a splash. The lake went still. No bubbles, no ripples, nothing. I screamed until my throat tore, until my voice echoed back at me from the fog, twisted and wrong. The engine suddenly roared to life. I didn't question it. I slammed the throttle forward and drove blind, crashing through fog and water, sobbing, screaming, praying. The shoreline appeared out of nowhere, the dock slamming into the boat hard enough to knock me forward. People found me hours later, curled in the bottom of the boat, soaked and shaking. Search crews dragged Clearwater Lake for days. They never found Luke. They did find something else. An old fishing net, tangled and torn, hauled up from the deep. Wrapped in its rotting cords were bones. More than one person. Too many hands. The official report said Luke fell overboard. Hypothermia. Drowning. I stopped fishing. I moved south. I tried to forget. But every now and then, when it rains hard at night, I hear water sloshing where it shouldn't. I hear my name whispered through wet voices. And sometimes in my dreams, I'm standing on a boat in the fog, holding a line that's pulling down, 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 while something beneath the surface waits for me to take Luke's place. Story the end.